Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha.
Genres are a funny little concept, aren't they?
So
Yes, they
you
are.
don't follow country music, but you're hearing it more lately and maybe even talking about it. Well, it's pretty safe to say that's the Yeehaw agenda at work, a Black American cultural movement that's gained greater prominence since Beyoncé dropped 2 singles during this year's Super Bowl, including Texas Hold'em.
This ain't Texas, ain't no Hold'em, so lay your cards down.
And her latest album, Cowboy Carter, which just became the first Billboard country album topper by a Black woman artist, has spurred even broader conversation about Black Americans' place and contributions to country music and culture. That includes debate over what qualifies as country music and who gets to perform it. Mainstream audiences may not associate Black people with country, but spend enough time with the genre, and the influence of Black American music is undeniable. Tim Kohler is the manager of fiction, film, and music at Central Library in downtown St. Louis. As he and his colleagues dove into Beyoncé's latest work, Tim said he found many sources crediting Black musicians for America's original music genres.
Looking historically at the origins of just simply American music, Black artists have always been there. A lot of the influence of instruments comes from a lot of other places instead of the United States. So parts of Africa and the Middle East where we get string instruments like the banjo and the guitar, and then percussion. All of those elements you find in country music, and all of those elements Black artists have perfected and also influenced other artists to take and grow and create more music.
We also heard from Trayvon Griffith, musician and co-founder of WorkFest, which hosts events to celebrate Black queer art and music. Trayvon hosted a party at Dot Zack called Glitter Cowgirl to celebrate the release of Cowboy Carter. Though he is a lover and student of music, he admits that Cowboy Carter and the online conversations about it has him paying closer attention to country music.
Black Twitter in general is a part of our communication with each other, and we've seen plenty of conversations around, a lot of Black people getting more interested in the genre, and also some of the artists who might have been here before and in creating music, also just getting exposed to new audiences. And I think a lot of it just because I didn't necessarily see myself represented, and that also could have just been because they weren't exposed to me or I wasn't exposed to them. But yeah, I didn't see myself, and a lot of times in the things that I engage, it's sort of things that I can see myself in, or I see myself reflected in some type of way. So it's been really nice to be able to see ourselves in this way, and also the other artists come up from underground and, showing that they've been here all along.
Joining me in studio is a Black country artist with first-hand experience with what it's like to have been there all along. And that's Michael B. Whit, a Cahokia, Illinois native and country music recording artist. Michael, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you so much. I feel welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So it is no doubt that Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter, that album has people talking about Black musicians in country music. Michael, what do you make of the attention Black country artists are getting right now?
I think it's amazing. We appreciate Beyoncé for everything that she's done. Obviously, she's a mammoth of an artist, and the light that she's casting on so many unknown country artists, especially, more specifically, Black artists in country music, it's incredible. Mm-hmm. Yep. So.
Was it a surprise to see this album?
I would say it was a surprise. It was a surprise that it dropped quietly like it did, but a lot of us that are working behind the scenes in country music, we pretty much knew that it was coming. We can kind of hear the industry buzz, and you can see the sign. She lets out a few little Easter eggs throughout each album to let you know that she's leading up to it. So
right.
we kind of knew, but yeah.
Okay. So, as we said, there's a great deal of conversation that's happening, whether that's on social media or in commentary by pop culture critics. And it kind of seems to boil down to this question of who belongs in country music. And you are in it. So instead of posing that question to you, I'd love to hear about how you first got into country music to begin with.
Okay. Well, like mentioned before, I'm from Cahokia, Illinois. It's a interesting little town because there's a clear split. When I was raised there, it was definitely about 50-50, both black and white. So the people that grew up there, they had an amazing opportunity to be cultured. So we got a chance to see life from both spectrums. We got to, as you would say, on both sides of the track. So I was one that was fortunate enough to experience and be engulfed in the mixture of both cultures that allowed me to dive even deeper and do a little more research on the history of where we've been in all different art forms, whether it be music in every space or whether it be communication arts, just across the board. We've always been in those spaces. So being from Cahokia allowed me to explore and express those things a little more easily than it would if I was in a predominantly black or a predominantly white community. So I got a mixture of them both. So country music has always been around. Some of my friends would listen to it. I come from a country family, so my family members would listen to it as well. So I was always in it.
So is there maybe one country music song or artist that was sort of your gateway to really getting into it?
Yes, actually, well, going skating with friends in a little place called Belleville, we would listen to obviously one of the songs that would come on back in the days, and I'm going to age myself here, was Billy Ray Cyrus, Achy Breaky Heart. It was just, it was a feverish song that swept the land, and it crossed over from country into all different genres. And you later started to see him kind of reimmerse with the release of Lil Nas X on recent songs. But yeah, that was one of the gateways there.
And so it was the Fun Spot on West Boulevard.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep, that's
now
it.
Skate City. Do you still skate there?
From time to time,
okay.
I do.
Right. So on that note about Lil Nas X, we opened the show with a note about the Yeehaw agenda, which got big in 2019 with a TikTok challenge with folks getting into cowboy outfits to dance to Lil Nas X's Old Town Road, which at that time was not very well known. Right. And it was Black folks, especially prominent artists and figures, who are joining this challenge. So, we talk a lot about identity on this show. And when it comes to racial identity, we're very cognizant, right, that there are many different views on how much race could or should affect someone's experience of any sort of given facet of life. So with that said, Michael, what are the conversations that you have had with friends, with family, with fans about being very specifically a Black country musician?
Oh, it's a mixed bag. Those that know me, they truly understand that I come from a country family. They see us with the cowboy culture from the start. Always been around horses, always been around farming, always been doing those things, the rural things. So they see it. But introducing myself to newer people that aren't aware of where I come from and my pedigree, it's always the interesting looks, the interesting stares, or the looming question of, your country, or how are you country?
Yeah.
And my response is always, we've always been in country. From the planting of the banjo inside of Americana and folk music, it comes from the word Bantu. So we've always been there. From Linda Martell to D. Fort Bailey, when you hear the Grand Ole Opry, those were the first sounds that you were here. So we've always been there. So, yeah.
And so your family, when you decided to go into country music as a profession, did they have any concerns about the extent to which you would be accepted as a country artist?
Surprisingly, no. They knew that I was equipped. At first, originally, once I started my professional music career, I was kind of stepping into the waters of like R&B, because I felt like those were the only opportunities on a professional level that were available to me. But it wasn't until my sister passed 6 years ago that I stepped out and started to do it professionally. And she was one of the ones that encouraged me to do music that was more authentic to where we come from.
Okay.
So that was a huge stepping stone, and that was a big push that I needed to get out and really express who we were and the values that we share, and that we're able to express those through the music, through country music more specifically.
Mm-hmm. And so how long have you been doing this total?
Country music professionally, I want to say 7 years. I had the cultivation period, then I released. But music overall, I've been doing music all my life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well over 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be back shortly to continue this conversation. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Let's return to our conversation with Michael B. Whit, a country music recording artist and native of Cahokia, Illinois. We're talking about country music as a genre, what qualifies as country, and who's making it, specifically Black Americans. Now, before the break, we were talking about the music that you perform, and just last week, you had a pretty big gig. You sang the national anthem at the Cardinals' home opener last Thursday. Let's listen to a bit of your rendition.
And the rock is red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free? And the home of the brave.
Michael, I got chills sort of like listening to the response of the people in the crowd. I'm sure it must have been quite a moment for you too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're a huge fan of Cardinals baseball. You even have a song about your love for the team. What did it mean to sing the national anthem at the home opener, to you as both a baseball fan and as an artist?
It was a surreal moment. As a baseball fan, you grow up looking and hearing the sound. You hear the bombs go off when your favorite player's knocking a home run, and it's a surreal moment just to be in the space and see some of your favorites out there on the field. So you get engulfed with nerves, you get engulfed with the adrenaline, and just the pure excitement of being in that moment. It's incredible. It's an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
So, and that's from just being a fan of Cardinals baseball all my life, but being an artist that is from and a son of the city, it's a full circle moment, because it's like, okay, my own is recognized me. And oftentimes it's really tough to be recognized in your own city, especially in a city like St. Louis where there's a wealth of talent. So for them to pick me, I was just elated and just happy to be in the space to do that.
Mm-hmm. So original music, let's get to that. You have several tracks or bops on Spotify, and it's your own original creations that people are hearing. Let's listen to your song, 40 Acres Down, to get a sense of the music that you make. That was 40 Acres Down by Michael B. Whit. So earlier in our conversation, we talked about the many different genres Black musicians have influenced or even pioneered. And then you talked also about kind of making a foray in the beginning into R&B. And I feel like I hear a little bit of that too. And genres can bleed into one another. Now, I admit I don't listen to much country music. That will change after this.
Yeah, well, let's change that.
Michael, how would you describe your country music?
If I could use one word to describe it, I would say amalgamation. It's a mixture of so many different influences and life experiences all wrapped into that bow of my identity of country music. And so you'll hear some of the gospel influence, you'll hear some of the R&Bs, the soul, you'll hear some pop, you'll hear country, you'll hear that twang. So yeah, that's what it is.
I
It's
heard
a
that in
gumbo.
the anthem too. Right,
Yep.
right. Now, is there a well-known artist whose sound or feel your work resembles most? Like earlier you had mentioned Billy Ray Cyrus, but are there any models that you've followed or that you've had some resonance with?
I've taken a little bit from every artist. Growing up, I would listen to George Strait. I would listen to Brooks and Dunn, just a lot of the great 90s country that I think was the prime of country music. And at the same time, I would flip the dial, flip the tape, and I'd have a little Prince, a little Michael Jackson on there, a little Motown on there.
Sure,
And so all of that, the lines would start to blur when I would start to create my own music. And you would see that new creation just start to take form based off of all of those different palettes of music. Yeah.
Let's listen to another one of your songs, Michael. This next one is called Takin' the Dog.
Yeah. Well, this just in, call my next of kin, tell him make a little room on his couch. Cause my old lady's gone redneck crazy, now I won't hear the end of her mouth. Cause I lost time, okay, I passed out at a bar called the Tipsy Cow. It's foul, I thought I'd walk, but I struck out. She put me out of the house, I'm taking a dog. You wanna take my boat, my fishing reels, I'm taking a dog.
All right, so that was Takin' the Dog by Michael B. Whit. So this song has a very different sound and feel from the one that we played earlier. I know that this is a term, bro country is something, that hits people in different ways.
Yeah.
But is that something that we hear a little bit in that?
You may. I hear Delta Swamp Blues in there as well. But yeah, definitely. If you hear that, if you identify with that, then yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
I try my best. I try my best when I'm creating music just to make sure I'm making things that everyone can get something out of.
Okay.
So, and that's the same thing with the anthem. That's why I started with a little country twang,
Yeah.
gave a little soul, ended with a little gospel.
Right,
So that
right.
everyone feels included once they hear it. So.
And that's, I think, an important point that country music, it resonates and is resonating with people in different ways. Is that something that you feel like you also were experiencing as a listener, or was that missing maybe in some ways and you've brought that into the way that you make your own music?
I believe it was absent earlier on. As I mentioned, in the early 90s, there wasn't really a heavy presence of blacks in country music to deliver those missing pieces, like the soul elements and the gospel elements that country was founded on. So, yeah, I think that's something that I'm bringing that's somewhat unique to still, I guess, reimagine what old country would sound like mixed with modern country. So, yeah, you'll hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Taking the Dog and 40 Acres, these two tracks that we've listened to, these are two songs that were released in 2022. But you have music, obviously, from earlier in your career. You mentioned you've been doing this for about 7 years now. How do you feel that your music has evolved over time?
That's interesting. How has it evolved? It has become a little more expressive. It has moved a little bit away from the traditional sounds of maybe perhaps the Camp Jackson, if you listened earlier on. But it's only just to grab the attention of newer listeners and to be that bridge so that newer people that are more prone to listen to R&B or pop, it'll serve as a gateway to get to what I think is the heart of country music, the traditional country music.
Yeah. Are there any things that happened personally for you that were maybe responses to things that were going on in the world that also have shown up in your music over time?
As of now, I mean, if you wait on the EP that'll be releasing before September, I'm going to debut a lot of new songs that are recorded, that are responses to the things that are happening in today's world. For the most part, introducing myself to the world, with the world being so on edge, I've kind of wanted to stay away from jumping right out. So just being unaware of how people would perceive if I release certain topics. So I had to release myself in a way that would be more palatable to the public or to the audience. So in leaving like the deeper topics to a later, once you get to know my personality, and then you can maybe receive some of the things that I have to say to address what's going on today.
Right. So, I mean, making it as a musician, it cannot be easy, right? It's pretty tough.
Yeah.
There's the business side of it. And then you've also talked about the lack of visibility, maybe, of Black country musicians. Even though you've been around for some time, people are just kind of coming to a new realization of it. Are there things that you have done in order to ensure that you can have some integrity in your music, but also support yourself as an artist?
Yeah. Well, I'm always like to show in my family build out, my family structure, so that people can see and identify and say, okay, that defeats what we would say is the status quo of the Black American male. He's a womanizer, or he doesn't take care of his kids, or so on and so forth. So I like to present and show that different outlook, and maybe expose that, hey, no, that's not true. Those stereotypes aren't true. Here's a guy who loves his wife, loves his kids, takes care of his kids, does country music that is taboo to most, and he's also has a little history in country music. He's a cowboy. Yeah. So yeah, these are unique things that I am doing, putting myself out and exposing the next generation and allowing them to really see that, okay, we can do this. We've always been here. So yeah.
Have you had any interactions with fans or with people who are not fans at first, who are kind of responding to what you're trying to put out there?
Yes. Even just in culture, my father and I, we have trails that we ride. We will ride our horses out. And sometimes, you get the ignorant remarks from drivers by that, will scream out and say, hey, when you guys start riding horses? But it's like, we've always been riding horses. And if you do your history on the word or the terminology for cowboy, it originated with Black Americans. They mentioned us as the cowboys, not the cowhands or the horsemen. We were the cowboys. Go get my cowboy.
Right. Do you think that, the conversation that has been generated recently by Beyoncé's album, that it is going to affect attitudes and expectations around Black musicians in country music, not just right now, but in the long run?
I believe the exposure is good for both the negative and the positive. At least we'll know where you stand. I think the worst enemy to fight is one that we can't see. And so if there is subvert racism or bigotism in music, it doesn't belong there. So I think to oppose it just because she's Black, it definitely puts a highlighter on who you are and your character. And we need to be able to see those people going forward. So we'll know how to navigate.
So genres, I wanted to kind of explore this because sometimes they can be set up as fences. Fences make good neighbors, but fences also can be obstructions, right? So with this album in particular that Beyoncé has put out and all the different people she's been working with, do you think that as far as genres and keeping people out of country music, that some of that will be broken down by what's happening right now?
I do. I believe she's that big of an artist to where she can actually start to make those fences or those lines deteriorate. And basically, she can do that through the muscle of just having more of her fans lock into country music, start buying country music, and that will ultimately start to shift where the labels are driving country music. You will start to see more black country artists if they can see that there is a need for black voices in country music. So, yes, for certain.
Yeah. So for those who want to support you, what you're doing as an individual artist, but also to be part of making black country music, a better recognized genre, what is it that they can do? Are there any events or things that you're going to be part of where people can see what sort of a full black country experience is like?
Yes. I'll give you two options, actually. So if you're following me, which is number one that I want you to do, follow me on all of my platforms at michaelb.whit. I'm always pushing the culture of country music, and obviously it goes without being said, I'm a black man. So if you want to learn more about black voices in country music, you can start there. You can pop up at my event, support me by coming to my shows. I have one coming up at the Westport Playhouse, and I'm going to be tributing Garth Brooks, one of my favorites. So you guys need to be there, April 19th and 20th. But also, if you want a more formal outlet for all things black country music or BIPOC country music, my good friend Reese Palmer has a station on Apple Music where she's towing the line and she's knocking down, different barriers in country music for people of color. So,
We've actually had an interview. Our executive producer, Alex Hoyer, interviewed Garth Brooks for the show.
Wow.
Yeah. So, how do you tackle his music? He's such an icon.
You don't tackle it. You just do your best that you can. He's a juggernaut.
And do you have a favorite song that you'll be performing that people can look forward to?
That night, the fan favorite, Friends in Low Places. That one always gets a good crowd reaction.
Okay.
So yeah, that one.
That's great. Michael B. Whit is a country music recording artist. Michael, thank you for joining us today, and good luck.
Thank you.
Now that we're off the radio, we can do this last verse, right? Well, I guess I was wrong. I just don't belong. Then I've been there before. Everything's all right. I'll just say goodnight and I'll shove myself to the door. You got it in me to cause a big scene. Just wait till I finish this glass. Then, sweet little lady, I'll head back to the bar. Help me out now, and you can kiss my ass. But I got friends in low places.
This episode was produced by Maya Norfleet.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.